Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
Hi, I'm George Luna.
Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I'm Frank Cooper.
And I'm Nathan Hale. And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Yes, we are. Welcome back to another edition of the Watchers in the Basement podcast. And I know you guys are aware, but hopefully everyone else is aware that as you're watching us on Facebook Live, we appreciate that. We're also available our podcast is available to watch other places, and you can listen to the audio of this same podcast other places as well. I'm going to toss it to Brittany now. Let her explain how you can listen and watch this show. Brittany, take it away.
So you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, thanks to Anchor.fm. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating, because that would help us out a lot. You know, we're a small podcast, but we're a proud one. And also, you can follow the Watchers in the Basement on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our latest video podcast, and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to find out the latest from us. And last but not least, to help our audience, we need help from our audience, rather, to help us grow. So don't forget to use hashtag #WatchersBasement when sharing our podcast.
Hey, thanks, Brittany. So let's get down to it. We're talking about season 2, episode 4 of The Boys. The title of the episode is Nothing Like It in the World. I'm now going to read the Amazon Prime description for the show. Road trip. The boys head to North Carolina to follow a lead on a mysterious soup named Liberty. And did you know a person's choice of candy bars might tell you if they're a serial killer? I didn't know that. Watch and learn the warning signs. This episode could save your life. So first off, everybody, let's just go around the room. What's your favorite candy bar? Brittany, go ahead.
Ooh, I actually really like Three Musketeers. I just like how fluffy the chocolate is, and I don't know, I like Three Musketeers. What about you, George?
Mine is that Hershey's, the cookies and cream chocolate bar.
Oh,
I'm all about the Symphony chocolate bar with the it's a Hershey's brand with like the toffee almonds in it. Oh, it's so good.
All right, Nathan, what about you?
Well, that's tough. I really like Reese's peanut butter cups, but ironically, I think my probably all-time favorite is Almond Joy. Ironically, so yeah.
Oh,
perfect time. Yeah, perfect time for the episode.
Yep.
So my favorite, I think my favorite all time is Snickers. When I was a kid, I used to love Nestle Crunch. So
I love
I'm sure I still would. I just haven't had one in forever. I can't remember the last time I had a Nestle Crunch, but
Do they still make those?
I think so. That'd be like that would be like life-changing news if they didn't.
Yeah, I haven't seen them around.
Have you had the ones from the movie theater? They're in the box, and it's like it's like little shaped. They look like little popcorns, but it's Nestle Crunch in like bite form.
Oh wow,
It's very good. Oh man,
I like the Nestle Crunch ice cream. That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah. So as you can see, we're off to a great start here. But so back to the episode. I think George saw this before any of the rest of us. He watched the episode first, and I think George, you nailed it when you described it. You said, there's not a lot of action in this episode, but there's a lot of character development, and the story really kind of moves along at a good pace. And so on this week's show, we're going to talk about the characters. Like instead of just doing a episode long recap, let's really look at the characters for each episode and talk about like who was, what happened to each of the key characters. So let's start out with Homelander. Obviously, he's the leader of the Seven, and he led the episode off. And we had a surprising return of Madeline Stillwell, or at least we thought so. I was fooled, honestly. I thought it was either a dream or I thought he cloned her or something. But it turns out that's not the case. Brittany, you want to tell us more about this?
Yeah. So seeing Madeline Stillwell back in the episode in lingerie, and she's got the milk, and she's trying to seduce Homelander, which still is very disturbing. I thought too it was maybe like a memory or he was dreaming, but no, it ended up being Doppelganger, and he's a soup that we've seen turn into Madeline Stillwell in season 1. who had relations with a very conservative senator. And so it just blew my mind that Homelander has like come down to this point where he needs Madeline in a way, but he has to use Doppelganger to make that happen. So it was weird. It was disturbing.
So George, what do you think about all that? When the episode first opens and they're at a secluded like log cabin or somewhere out in the woods. Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, well, what's happening? I wasn't sure what to think about it. I personally believe that she maybe like he had a clone of her made or something. Like, you don't know what Bach can do. And then Anna told me that she's like, no, she's like, I bet you it's a doppelganger, and she ended up being right. But it was so creepy. Like, I think Homelander, this episode, we definitely see a lot of his issues, and like his story, like character development through this episode is pretty major. We learn a lot about him, and as the episode goes on, I guess I'll comment like more on that.
Yeah, I mean, you really see kind of how insecure he is, even though he's like the most powerful person in the world. He's definitely concerned with the fact that Stormfront appears to be the new leader, or the people's champ, so to speak, of the Seven. So Frank, what did you think about that storyline? How he looks weak, really, honestly. What would you think about that?
Yeah, I think that whole ordeal, those scenes with Madeline was symbolic to him missing her. I think last season when he killed her was in a fit of rage. I think now that the dust is settled, that he now regrets doing that, because every scene that we've seen in season 2 so far either had to do with Milk, him being lost as far as like guidance and how to run the Seven, and not having anybody in his corner. And the minute that he killed Madeline Stillwell was the minute that the tide turned, and that he's not the focal point of the Seven anymore, because old buddy Edgar does not cut for a Homelander, and Edgar is doing everything to put Stormfront in the forefront of the team. So I think that's it. I think it's just him just really feeling guilty from the mistakes that he made, and realizing that, man, I did need her. Look what I've done, and I can't go back to it now. And this is the best thing that he can have, is his doppelganger, masquerading as her.
I wanted to ask y'all a question about the comment that Madeline makes to Homelander about, because he's the leader of the Seven, he nurtured them and fed them and watered them and all that stuff, that he needs to tear out the weeds. Like, I thought it was really interesting that even though we know Madeline is dead or whatever, would that have been something she would have said to him? And I'm just like really curious as to, when Doppelganger embodies another person, like, does he just take on the physical aspect of them, or does he like somehow know how they think? Open-ended question to anyone who wants to answer.
I think he just kind of, he's like an actor. He takes the the information that Homelander gives him, and then kind of creates this fantasy character that Homelander wants anyway. So I don't think it's like a full-on takeover of that person. I don't know, Nathan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and here's why. Kind of, not to jump ahead, but the moment, like, I was like everybody else, I was like, what is this, a clone? What's going on? I'm confused. And then when there was the reveal that was Doppelganger, my very first thought was, oh, he's dead. He's so dead. Because that just like we've seen with in the past with Madeline, she could say things to trigger him and screw up. And I knew there's no way he like just instantly possesses her memory. So he was going to say something, do something to screw that up. And Homelander, as we've seen, is kind of like a child, a little bit of a short fuse. So yeah, that was my very first thought upon the realization that was Doppelganger was probably not long for this world. And so yeah, I agree. It's he gets the physical form, but he doesn't get all the memories or anything that would allow him to completely embody that role.
Yeah, like the essence of the person. It's just he just is a lookalike basically, because then we find out at the end that Doppelganger in a way to appeal to Homelander, he becomes Homelander himself. So it's Homelander and Homelander action. And I don't know about y'all, but I thought we were going to get that. I really did. This show just goes so many places, and I would not have been as surprised at all to see that happen. What do y'all think? I'll start with Brittany.
That was, I mean, this show obviously pushes the envelope on many different levels, but to the idea to see one-on-one action, like literally one-on-one action, with yourself, I was cringing because it's this appeal of, oh, you're the best, and you can, no one can outdo you, and you're so hot and this and that. I was getting so disturbed by this whole thing. And then I thought to myself, would Homelander actually enjoy watching himself do things that he shouldn't be doing in that sense of a BJ? So I'm just, I don't know. What do y'all think, George?
It was pretty disturbing. I couldn't stop laughing though. I was like, oh my God, is he gonna do it? Like, cause it looked like it was. His head got pretty far down, and then thank God that was as far as I could go. I'm glad it stopped there because it was pretty bad. And then unfortunately, the doppelganger didn't survive too much longer after that.
Frank, your thoughts on that?
You know what? That whole scene itself didn't surprise me not one bit. Like, the man thinks he's a god. Like, make no mistake. He told his son when they're on the roof, I think episode 2, he was like, dude, we're gods, and sometimes as gods we feel lonely. Like, he really believes he's a celestial. So with that being said, and most of the times when people who are that arrogant and narcissistic, that's a tall tale sign, is when you're so into yourself that it looks as if it's almost sexual. So when I saw that scene, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he topped himself off in that scene. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised at all, because he's so into himself, and he really views himself as the engine that runs the world, not the Seven, the world. So I thought that was a great scene. I thought it was powerful. I was mildly surprised that he snapped out of it. I thought that he was gonna go through with it. He's so into himself is ridiculous.
So on that topic, though, because the fact that the Homelander doppelganger is telling him the things that he thinks he wants to hear about, everyone loves you and you're the greatest, etc. Homelander then says to Homelander doppelganger that, I don't need you. Now, is that a comment to the doppelganger saying the comments that he said, or he himself is kind of like saying that to himself, I don't need you, Homelander? But I don't know if I'm making sense, because
No, you are.
Okay.
Was he speaking to himself as if in a mirror, or was he speaking to doppelganger?
There you go. Thank you.
And that's a good point. I wondered the same thing during that scene. I thought that was actually the most interesting dynamic. Like I said, when he first appeared as doppelganger early in the show, I was like, gosh, he's a dead man. I know he's going to screw up. So I wasn't surprised in the masturbation scene, you might call it, when he ends up killing doppelganger. But I thought that was interesting as he's saying that. Was he actually talking to himself? And I kind of believe he was. Like, I don't think he was so much talking to doppelganger in those last moments as he was himself. And I'm glad you brought that point up, Brittany.
Yeah, and the only reason why I say that, and again, this is going to be an open question that anyone can answer, obviously, is because the fact that he made that comment of, I don't need you, or I don't need anybody, but myself. He did say that at one point in the show. It made me also wonder, has he given up all hope with any kind of relationship with his son Ryan? Because as you all recall from last episode, Ryan like flipped out on him and basically told him to F off, and he hates him. So what kind of path is Homelander going to be on at this point?
I think the
Go ahead,
your
great
first question, Brittany. Sorry, I think the answer to your first question, about him asking whether or not, about him saying I don't need you. I think he was talking to Doppelganger / Madeline, because Madeline Stillwell was a person that was she had all the answers. Well, whether it was PR related, whether it was we need a press release, prepare a statement, anything that Vought needed at that time, Stillwell was the answer. And even season 1, you saw how much of a crutch that Homelander was. I mean, Homelander you still as. And I think the beginning of the crutch breaking is when he was at after the plane crash, when he spoke to the media. That was like the first you saw of him kind of like going off script and talking about things that Madeline didn't want him to talk about. So when he says it's a doppelganger, I really believe that he's washing himself of like being babysat and being spoon fed. I'm my own man. All I need is me. Edgar's not in my corner. Stormfront's not in my corner. The Seven's not in my corner. I'm in my corner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he was speaking to Doppelganger into basically using that as a representation of Vought or Stillwell or whoever.
Well, even the Homelander that was in the embodiment of the Seven, of that image. So I think it's kind of all encompassed there. It's basically the entire scenes with him there felt like that this episode was kind of like Homelander's midlife crisis, if you will. And so I think it was him shedding the old life and stepping into a new, and that was casting off the old Homelander, the need for Madeline, the need for Vought, all of that. I think we're all kind of hitting on that same mark, and it was a powerful way to show that.
You think he'll have a black suit like Superman?
Well.
When Superman came back from the dead, he was wearing a black suit.
God, we're not going to.
By the way, we'll be able to see that in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League next year. So,
well, that would imply that we actually watch it.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna hate watch it, but I'm gonna watch it.
Hard pass. But George, George, I'm gonna pick on you. What do you think about the idea that maybe Homelander has given up hope on Ryan?
I don't know. I know he did Brian did freak out on him last episode, and I don't know if he's given up hope just yet. I think he's still gonna try and convince him somehow to start using his powers to try and just be like him. I don't know. I feel like Homelander's gonna do something bad to try and get his son to become like him, or just use his powers in some sort of way. Which I hope is not the case, and I hope he doesn't do anything to harm his mom or anything. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's about it.
I think as far as the Homelander and his son, to me, this speaks to how quickly this show moves along. Because besides that one scene, we haven't really seen a whole lot between them as far as ill will or anything like that. And so to me, it feels like we need more story, or we need more information to really decide whether Homelander's given up on the kid. I don't personally think he has, because I think he looks at the kid as an extension of himself. But who knows? With this show, to me, this show moves really fast. So the kid may be 25 in the next episode. Who knows? I never can't tell. But moving along, Nathan, a second ago, you mentioned the fact that Homelander's kind of reached a midlife crisis of some sort, and it seems the character that's kind of pushed him the most is Stormfront. So let's get into her storyline in the show. She doesn't get a ton of screen time, but she puts up shots. You know what I'm saying? She comes off the bench and scores 20 points on 7 shots. You know what I'm saying? She's getting rebounds, getting assists. She's out there playing the game. Um, let's get
She's
into
making
her.
soldiers.
Right, and she's doing it through social media. With social media is like one of her powers almost. And she talks about that, about how she's got 5 guys on laptops making memes, and she's more effective as a leader than Homelander is with Vought's backing and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It was kind of just the whole her character is. I mean, obviously there's so many layers of this character, but in her interactions with Homelander, this is open ended. Whoever wants to answer, how would you describe how she reacts to him? Because to me it seems like, given her history, which we'll talk about in a little while, I would think that she's probably as powerful or more powerful of Homelander, but then in moments where he confronts her, she kind of backs down and looks like she's afraid of him. So what do y'all think about that?
I think
Yeah.
I think there's what you're saying is spot on. I think in many ways they're probably like on par in terms of how powerful they are, but I still want to say that Homelander has like some advantage to it, not just because of the fact that he's been in 7 for most likely the longest, or I don't know, but because we learn what we learn about Stormfront. She does cower for sure when she pushes him too much, and I don't know, because there's other aspects of that kind of relationship that still makes me wonder, like, is this going to turn into let's be besties, but I'm really just going to stab you in the back. In the meantime, we're also going to like fool around, because I still get those vibes, especially in this episode where she kind of like, to me at some point she seems like she's coming on to Homelander. I don't know I don't know. Frank, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I get Peter Baelish vibes from her. I think she's just using the manipulation game. I think she's actually probably more powerful than Homelander, but I think she's just down in the back, as if she needs Homelander by keeping him at bay, by keeping him at check. So I think she's doing a great job. Look, first off, she's been alive for God knows how long. She could be immortal. So from that standpoint, she probably knows a lot more, seen a lot more than your average superhero or average human being. So I think she's just planting her seeds and biding her time before she strikes. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a buddy coalition between her and Homelander, with her, eventually the Homelander to gain an advantage for something. What she wants, we don't know yet. Hopefully, the next couple episodes will dive into that, as far as like what she desires.
I have a question. How old is Homelander? And because we learned that Lady Liberty or whatever is actually Stormfront, but we know that she's super old. She's old as hell. I forgot what the dates were, but how old is Homelander? Because I was under the impression that he was like the first suit for some reason. I don't know why I was thinking that, but is she older than him?
That is a good question, and that's one I've been kind of wondering myself, in particular in this episode, because in the first season, I got the impression, because of the way he was raised, that he was one of the original, and the scientist, I can't remember his name, was saying, we screwed up with you, we've learned from that. So I was like, he must be one of the original ones. But I also knew, because there was mention, I think in season 1 of Soldier Boy, there was and just from the little knowledge of the comic, that these people were around, and Vought was around. It was in the commercial they played at some point since the 40s. So I was like, well, that doesn't jive unless the world just knows that Homelander's 80 years old or whatever, but there was never anything said to that effect. So that got me wondering. And now with the revelation of who Liberty is, whatever, and the fact that we know who's coming in season 3 as Soldier Boy, so that opens up the question of when did things change? How did it change? I'm of the opinion that he's not as old as Liberty. I think that would already have been addressed if he was. It's clearly something Vought has gone through efforts to hide or else it'd be public knowledge. So I don't know if we'll get an answer to that until season 3 with Soldier Boy, to be honest. I think they're kind of holding out on that and lording that over us this season. I could be wrong. They may reveal it all next episode for all we know, but I get the feeling that's gonna be one of the bigger secrets held until season 3.
Is Soldier Boy like you said this for next season? Is he like one of the older like Lady Liberty times?
Yeah, he was also from World War II.
Okay.
So yeah, these are all Liberty. They're kind of making the playoff, if you will, the Avengers. In fact, and I only know this because from the comics, and I've watched a lot of stuff on the comics. I haven't read them, but they talk about a group that was kind of like the Avengers. And if you guys, I know Frank's familiar, the Avengers, and actually you've seen the movies, Winter Soldier, all that. The Avengers as a comic started out. They were a follow-up to the characters, or the original ones were with World War II. I mean, Captain America punching Hitler was an iconic piece of comic book art. So the whole idea of the Avengers in the world of the boys is there's a group called Payback, which is where Stormfront's from, as well as Soldier Boy and Liberty. I believe Liberty was a part of their group, and some others whom I don't even know. They've yet to be revealed in the show in some form. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a resurgence of the group Payback in some form. And was Payback the first attempt at the 7 and it went awry, or I don't know. I don't know where they're going to take it in the show, but I'm looking forward to seeing where they go. And it looks like they're definitely paying at least homage to that to the comic with Soldier Boy and Liberty being in here.
Nathan and Brittany, I have a question for you guys. What you guys brought up kind of reminded me of what happened in season 1. So we have a lot of loose storylines without not really tied ends yet. And this season we've seen a lot of makeshift with the 7 roster. I wonder if that's going to tie back to what happened to Lamplighter in season 1. Because with Lamplighter, we know that he retired. So I'm not sure if that's going to play a part as far as why he retired. Was it because he find out that they weren't actual full-blooded superheroes, and that he found out about the V, or what got in the way of him retiring? Because as you see with Vault, they do a lot of PR. Like I'm sure with with Translucent dying and what's going on, and what's going on with Deep and stuff, the public is seeing something totally different. So I wonder with Lamplighter if that's gonna be if that ties into like everything that's going on with the 7 behind the scenes with Liberty and Soldier Boy, as maybe for next year.
Well, kind of to your point about that, Frank, is Nathan, first off, you absolutely called it in our last podcast about Liberty and Stormfront. That was awesome. I really didn't see that coming up until obviously when it was revealed. I think the biggest takeaway from this episode for sure. But what we know about Stormfront is that she is like pretty freaking racist. And so that makes me wonder about her whole being, having been from World War II era. Is she on the side with the Allies, or is she more, on the other side to, because of what you had said about her making a comment about Homelander's very blue eyes. He looks very Aryan. She, in this episode as Liberty, was incredibly racist towards a young man, a black young man, and killed him, for a crime he didn't commit. So that's my curiosity about her as a soup. And then how is Soldier Boy? Is he on the side of the Allies, or is he in line with her? You know what I mean? And then where does Lamplighter fall into all that as well, to your point, Frank? So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm not sure either. That's kind of been, and again, I haven't read the comics. I just keep watching random videos about the various comics. trying to catch up on the backstory from the comics, which is a terrible way to do it because it's all jumbled and out of order. Which is the only reason I even knew that Liberty might have been Stormfront, was because that was just a theory thrown out there. And one of them I read when they were talking about Stormfront, and I was like, okay. And then I started looking at the episode when I did the rewatch, and I was like, I'm seeing all these Liberty posters. I was like, I bet that's going to be a thing. And of course, with it being a key component of the third episode in the discussion with Mallory, I can't remember. Yeah, Mallory and Butcher. I was like, okay, I think that's where they're going with this, and sure enough, they did. Now, as far as like Lamplighter, like you mentioned his retirement, Frank, and I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe he did retire, but I thought that was a cover-up, that he perhaps did die during that whole Mallory situation operation. Because Frenchie in episode 2 of season 1 makes a comment that he could count on one hand the number of supers he's killed. And I feel like Lamplighter might have actually been one of those. And they retired him because they didn't want to admit to his actual death. And if there's any soup that probably had it coming in the backstory, as much of a big deal as they made out of the whole Mallory situation, I would think Lamplighter would be that one. But I don't know. What do you guys think? And Lamplighter sounds like somebody who would have been around since the 40s. That's just in my head because he always reminded me of the Human Torch, who was, or the Torch as he originally was back in the 40s when he was a part of this group of the early Avengers that weren't the Avengers quite yet. So what do you guys think? Is it possible that maybe he was just getting so old they had to retire him because he was from that era?
No, I think you're right, Nathan. I think he was retired because he was killed. But I have done some kind of advanced research, and they did cast somebody for Lamplighter. And so it may be in like a flashback or something. Because I know this actor. He was on Smallville for a little while. And so I think that there's a chance that it might be like a flashback or something, but I do think he's the character, like going forward, I believe is dead. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when it was announced about Lamplighter's retirement, you never saw him actually there being recognized and honored and saw that, because I'm going to jump a little bit ahead about A-Train, because in this episode, Homelander basically is weeding out the team, and he does so individually. First was trying to with Starlight, and he gets to A-Train basically saying, hey, you can't run anymore, you're out of the 7, you're a weak link, and it makes me, Homelander, and the 7 look bad. So when A-Train is talking with Ashley about what's happening, she's like, there's going to be parades. You're going to do the circuit of talk shows. You're going to get a reality series. Like, they were going to make a big deal about it, right? So with Lamplighter, he never got that. So I think to y'all's point about him actually being dead, and it's a cover up, much to like Translucent, who actually is dead though. That was different. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see Lamplighter in an actual like present state. It's going to be all from before.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, going back a little bit ago, y'all were talking about Liberty, a lot of Liberty talk, right? And y'all know me, like I'm pretty much a creative genius. I mean, I'm one of the best at creating things. And I was thinking,
you write your own jokes even.
I write my own jokes. You're right, I do. And I think you're going to enjoy this one, so don't step on it. So I was thinking like Liberty, right? Like, what if Liberty had like a theme song or a jingle? And I was like, what would that sound like? And I thought about it for a second, and I crafted this one. I'm just gonna let y'all hear it. See what you think. Liberty, 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 liberty. What do y'all think?
I knew that was coming.
What do y'all think about that? I mean, that's just off the top of my dome.
That's catchy, man. That's catchy.
I knew it. Justin, I knew you were going to do that. As soon as you told me you were going to do something, I knew it.
Sorry, I had to do something stupid. So
you don't write those jokes down for nothing.
No, no. No, I didn't write it down. I kept it up here, right?
By
Kept
the
it
way,
up
we're
there.
not sponsored by Liberty.
No, Liberty Mutual. If you want to sponsor us, please do. Or Geico, I don't care. I'll take Geico. I'll take their money.
Oh man.
But anyway, so I had to be stupid. Let's move on a little bit more. So we're talking about Homelander, his age or whatever. I think like if you follow the Superman kind of archetype, I think Superman, like once he becomes Superman, he's kind of like mid 30s whenever people are aware of him. So let's say Homelander's been around for a little while, so he's probably in his 40s. So let's go to another character who I think's in his 40s, and that's Butcher. This was a big episode for Butcher because once again, to show how fast the show moves, he meets Becca. He sees Becca again. You think like that could be like the season finale. That could be next season. That could be the series finale in 5 years or whatever. Not with this show. Like I said, it's all go, go, go. No stop signs on this show. He meets Becca, and Brittany, you want to talk about what happens with that storyline?
First of all, that actually kind of bothered me how quickly that happened because it's like Butcher is working with Mallory again, saying, "Okay, let's get this so-called soup terrorist. Let me get him to you guys, and then you help me find Becca." And then it's like out of nowhere, Mallory's like, "Oh, here's information about where we think Becca is," and then he just so happened to go to the compound, which, by the way, we still don't know where it is. Last time I said that the license plate was from Colorado, but the fact that he was able to, he up and left the boys, right? Leaves MM in charge so that he can go and get Becca out of the, I don't know why I just quoted Becca. That was weird. Go get Becca out of the compound.
Is she really Becca?
At this point, she could be another doppelganger. Who knows? But how quickly all that information was found, was given, and then he goes and climbs the damn wall to get into the compound and not be seen. Did that bother anyone else, or is it just me? Or am I that critical?
But he was seen. He was seen by the camera, and he flips off the camera. So,
yeah, I know. Yeah. But you guys understand what
I agree. It all seemed like it was too fast for me. And also, you're right. Where is it? How did he find it? I mean, well, I know we know how he found it because Mallory gave him the instructions, but it seemed too quick to me. It was an awesome story, but too fast. What do y'all think?
That didn't make sense because he flicks off the camera and then he asks about where can we go where there's no cameras? That makes zero sense at all. Like he would have instantly got caught if no one was supposed to get into his compound.
No, that's true. That's true. But I think what he was saying to Becca was, I know there's a lot of cameras here. Where can we go where there's no cameras? Because he was aware of the cameras.
I know, but he was saying that to not to try to avoid the cameras and not be caught. But he climbed the wall before and he was already seen and he flicked off the camera. Like, how did they not notice that? Until way later on. But whatever. It advanced the story pretty fast. So I'm not really complaining about it.
No, I agree that bothered me as well. The only way I could rationalize it personally was, and it's a weak rationalization, was that he just didn't want her to be seen on camera with him because it could get her in trouble. He didn't care what happened to him. He's like, fuck all about that. That's the only thing I could figure. But I agree. That was kind of a weak chink in the whole story there. But,
Yeah, because for the most part, I mean, the story will kind of like, you get pieces of the puzzle and then here's the completed puzzle. But with this, it was just like last episode, okay, here's the deal. You give me the terrorist, I'll help you find Becca. Now it's like, okay, well, the terrorist is dead, but here you go. Like, I went ahead and found her. No explanation whatsoever. Like, I can't deal with that. For me, I need to have like some kind of explanation.
I think she just felt sorry for him.
But
That's the only explanation I see that makes sense to me. Like, she felt really bad for him. Like,
she was
doing all for her, and then like he really wanted to find his wife, so she helped him out anyway.
Yeah, she was triggered. Mallory was triggered by that because when Kimiko lost her brother to the hands of Stormfront, and he was just saying how they failed the mission, she felt bad for him. I think that's why she went out of her way to give him the intel where Becca was at.
No, I understand that. I understand that she shared the story about the dream. Uh, she's in Carnegie Hall where everyone that has died at the hands of the soup, is sitting there watching her. I get that, but like it's kind of like unfortunately I have to bring up Star Wars this last episode. Palpatine's back. We thought he was dead, but guess what? He's back with no explanation. I just can't handle that.
Well, I don't know shit about no Palpatine, but I know I get why they did that, because like at first, on one hand, she hates the dude. Like, her grandkids are dead because of the boys, but I think that semblance of family and losing loved ones, and now because when Butcher said that, I thought she was dead, and now I know she's alive. I think her wanted to give him hope to find his wife again, kind of like, well, kind of gives her the forgiving nature of, like, what happened. It sucks, but that doesn't mean that you have to lose your family member too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just to continue that storyline, so Butcher, he finds Becca. They find a little spot where they can get together in her Subaru Forester. It looks like she's driving a Forester or something. And so they bang it out, and they have a good scene where they're talking about, she's talking about how, or he's asking her how her life's been since last time he saw her, and she explains how Homelander obviously raped her. Then she had this kid Ryan, and I guess she's been there for 7 or 8 years. I don't know. It's hard to say time wise. And Butcher's trying to convince her to, he doesn't think he's convincing her. He thinks she's going to leave with him. And ultimately she decides she's not going to leave with him, because she knows that if they leave, Butcher's going to get rid of the kid, because the kid is Homelander's son. And as Butcher describes, he's a soup freak. And obviously she loves her son, despite the fact that he's a soup freak. And so she's going to stay. And so now we've got to see what happens with that, as far as how will Butcher, does he give up on that? Does he, what's his new plan going forward? So I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
But see, I don't think, because at one point, there wasn't a point where Butcher had actually said, I'm going to get you and Ryan out of here. He kept saying, I'm going to get you, Becca, out of here. Like, his whole focus, to me at least, was solely on Becca. And because of obviously the way he feels about soups, and now that there's a child who is Homelander's child out there, he doesn't want anything to do with Homelander, obviously. He just wants Becca. He wants his old life back and what have you. I get that. But the fact that Becca had said to Butcher about leave my son to Vought, that way he can be raised without a mother, and then we have 2 Homelanders. We have 2 assholes in the world. Like, that was a really profound moment, because as much as Becca obviously loves Butcher, like, she's still going to put her child, albeit a soup, before Butcher. And that had to have been, that's going to be very difficult to overcome for both parties, Becca and Butcher. So I really don't think Butcher had any intention whatsoever of taking Ryan along with them.
No, I definitely agree. Frank, George, Nathan, y'all have anything else to add about Butcher Becca storyline?
I do have one thing to add. This is a bit of a non sequitur, but you brought up the term soup freak. And one thing I've noticed with this show is there's a tendency to have some really cool songs playing throughout. We've seen, Jane's Addiction Stop. We heard Cherry Bomb, a bunch of good songs, right? So are we going to have an episode with Super Freak? So that's all I'm wondering.
That'd be funny.
Eventually I would have put that together, but didn't have enough time.
Exactly.
So,
I had to beat you to it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have a day job, so.
Do you really, though?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Let's move along here. So the next character, and actually we can kind of group these characters together, but with Butcher out looking for Becca, he puts MM in charge of the boys. And I got to say, Mother's Milk in this episode, I think he's, his initials are MM, but I think he's the MVP, honestly. He keeps the team together. He's like the one who's always like looking out for people. He's like the one that is basically, keeping Huey going. And just the whole storyline of how MM, Huey, and Starlight go to North Carolina to find out more about Liberty. I thought that was a really awesome,
road trip.
Yeah, road trip. Yeah, that whole storyline. It was one of my favorite things about the show. It really was like because you get to see all these little things, like the fact that MM has OCD, which Laz Alonso, the actor who plays Mother's Milk, he has OCD also. So I've heard him talk about how this character allows him to just kind of be himself. He doesn't have to worry about all his like weird idiosyncrasies and having to count stuff and these like control things that are always in his head. With this character having the same issues, he can just be himself. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And just the whole storyline, how Starlight's back with Huey, or they're together because obviously Homelander's trying to kill her or he's intimidating her, and they're all kind of thrown together. And it's kind of a weird trio, but it makes for a great story, at least in my opinion. George, what do you think about how that played out in this episode?
It was a good part of the storyline and in the episode, Jay. I agree with you. Just seeing, I think what I liked was just seeing Huey and Starlight kind of just like have that re-spark moment and just kind of like gather themselves and I don't know, just try and patch things up after everything that happened, like him lying to her and she almost killed him the last episode. I feel like they got that
typical dating issues,
What'd you say, Nathan?
Typical dating issues, nearly killed him.
Yeah, typical suit dating issues, I'm guessing. But I think we got to see them like kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say closure because like, or maybe like they I don't think they're gonna end up dating again. She's like, we can't do this anymore. Like once they got back and they found out about Liberty and Stormfront or whatever, once they get back, it's like, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea for us to do this anymore or like date or whatever. So I think they got that closure from that trip, and I think it's something they both desperately like needed.
I mean, I would probably dump someone if they told me their favorite candy bars are Almond Joy and like all these really questionable type, candy bars. I mean, I can't even remember the other two that she named, but like they were really awful.
Charleston Chew
and Bit of Honey.
Bit of Honey.
There you go. There you go. Those sound just awful.
Are those real? I don't even know.
Yeah, they are. Charleston Chews are terrible. Bit of Honey is not even really like a candy bar? That you used to get them. They're little square wrap things that remind you of like Mary Jane's or whatever in Halloween back in like 4 million years ago, and they're not. I don't even think of them as candy bars. But whatever.
Frank, I wanted to ask you what was your take about MM actually being a little bit more personable, because he's always kind of been like not standoff, but he's kind of this hard ass kind of dude. They've got a mission. He's very family oriented because he, was in the first season, he was so fixated on making sure that his relationship with his wife worked, being honest with her, and then, their daughter, what have you. But we saw a different side of MM being a little bit more vulnerable, especially to Starlight, because obviously the boys, albeit Huey, have an opinion about Soup. So what do you think about the personal stories that we learned from MM in this episode?
I think the interactions with Starlight and Huey in those scenes is basically a mark that Mother's Milk is turning the corner. Season 1, when they talk about the boys, they went through, off camera, with the whole lamplight situation and Mallory's kids and their hate for Soups, tell that Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Butcher just have this stain and this win at all costs to bring down Soups. But I think with Kimiko coming in last season and Mother's Milk warming up to her, but through Frenchie, now seeing that, has Starlight saved their ass a couple times now already. In season 1, I think that's starting to show demonstrations that you know what, our soups ain't bad. Our soups aren't vault material as far as like doing things for the nature of the business and making money and PR stunts. Starlight is a good person, and I've seen multiple examples of that. So let down my hair a little bit and open up and let her know that you know what you what you're doing for us is appreciated. I think him sharing that was subconsciously saying that you know what, thank you for fighting for us, even though we're fugitives in this world. Thank you for having our backs, and thank you for being one of the good ones.
Yeah, because she shares a personal story about her father to as they're chowing down on a donut, and in turn, shares a personal story about his dad with what they would do after church and going to get ice cream. And then we also learn when the boys and Starlight go to meet Valerie Hunter in North Carolina, who has information about Liberty. We hear more about MM's background, but we don't learn a whole heck of a lot. We just learn that something happened between his dad, who was a lawyer, and something with Vought, and his father had a very untimely death. So like I'm very curious to find out what that story is, and if we're actually going to find out what that story is.
That's very interesting because I thought Mother Milk was making all that up just to get her to talk.
Same.
I was like, is this really true? Or are you just saying that just to pour the heartstrings?
No, I think it was 100% true, because the fact that when Huey and Starlight, after meeting Valerie, are in the car and they're talking about, okay, so Liberty is Stormfront, she must be like 70 years old. And Huey says, hey, I didn't know that about your dad. And he gets emotional. He's like, yeah, I thought he was a hero, but it's a disease. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to pass it on to, and so that made me curious, like if he actually means a real like type of disease. Obviously he's got OCD, that's beside the point, but like this fixation of his dad had a goal to maybe take down Vought, now it's passed on to and if MM's not successful, is that going to be passed on to his child to finish whatever was started?
Yeah, I mean, the show does a great job of like showing people's ulterior motives. Like we know Butcher's ulterior motive from from his wife to the party that happened 8 years ago and all that, but we don't really know. We're going into this episode. We really didn't know Frenchie's motivation of why he's part of the boys and Mother's Milk. And if that's all true, then we have a clear understanding why this is such a big deal for him. Being part of the boys, helping bring down Vought. If his father was a lawyer and some crooked shit happened to the point where her dad got killed, because he did too much or came across some big bad, Vought files or thugs and they took him out. Now I understand why he's so hell bent on bringing him down. Frenchie's is another person who I still want to know his motivations, because to continuously put your life on the line to bring down a corporation like Vought, you have to be connected in some sort of fashion. Something happened that's personal to you. I want to see why Frenchie is still part of this team. Let's keep him there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And actually, the episode opens with him, and Frenchie's having a hard time. He's struggling. He's abusing drugs, and he tries to, as he said, is an attempt to console Kimiko, who lost her brother in the last episode. He attempts to kiss her. Of course, she's not having that, and we don't see a whole lot of these two characters in this episode. There's a little bit more interaction, like later, toward the end during Stormfront's, she has like a rally or whatever. Yeah, at Vought Square. Kimiko is kind of watching this happen, and she's having flashbacks about seeing her brother be killed, and she's kind of charging the stage to kind of do something to Stormfront, and Frenchie shows up out of nowhere to stop her and says, hey, like, you won't survive if you attack her. So that was kind of their storyline for the episode. It was definitely kind of a B or a C storyline compared to the other stuff, but I thought it was interesting. I mean, George, what was your take on Kimiko and Frenchie?
I think Frenchie overstepped like his like boundaries by trying to kiss her, especially when she's mourning for the loss of her brother and everything. So I think he's just confused, and he's been like on a like bender, just doing like all these drugs and all this stuff. And we see them again when Stormfront's giving a speech in front of like a crowd, and you see Kamiko like slowly creeping up on her, like she was gonna try and do something, and probably die in the process of doing it. And Frenchie kind of stops her, and he saves her from doing something really stupid. So I'm not sure what Frenchie's storyline is gonna be or what's gonna happen, but I am curious to see.
Yeah, I have something like I think we learned a little more about Frenchie's backstory than we realized, like how he got his name, because apparently he likes Frenching people.
Terrible, Nathan.
I know.
Nathan,
I know.
Nathan, you are getting dangerously close to my corner. Okay, that's my corner.
Yeah, but it was not written down in your notes, so
I know.
Burn.
Damn it.
That's just awful.
It kind of hurts.
It's awful.
Mi corazón hurts.
Oh my God.
Let's so now we've covered the boys. Let's get to the soups. And Brittany, let's talk about what was going on throughout the episode, which I thought was bizarre, was the deep storyline.
These cutaways, I guess I don't know if you can really call it a cutaway, but the scenes, because the first scene that we actually do see is a woman, and it looks like she's being interviewed and talking about, you know, what love is, and she's talking about her experience about being engaged and how, I don't know, something about kids, and her husband didn't want to have kids, and ultimately they didn't get married. But ultimately that, along with a couple of other scenes of different women being interviewed, it has to do with the deep, because the Church of the Collective apparently have their claws in on the deep very, very intensely, because the deep is going to be married. But he doesn't get to decide who his wife is going to be. The church is going to decide, because it's their way of rehabilitating him to get back into the seven. I don't know how that's going to work. It's crazy as hell to me, but I do have a question to ask Frank specifically, because one of the interviewees had an Ed Sheeran tattoo, and Frank, I know you're a big fan of Ed Sheeran. Would you get a tattoo of Ed Sheeran on your body?
Fuck yes, I would. Right on my chest. And it will be like I would get like the red burnt orange dye for his hair, like right there on my left titty. I sure would.
You know, that would really show the shape of you. It really would. That I mean, I know you're an Ed head. So real quick, Frank, what's your favorite Ed Sheeran song?
Oh man. I can give you a top 5. I don't like give you a top. Oh, you know what?
Is Photograph in there?
Photograph is number 4.
Okay.
Pay-per-view, Galway Girl, Wayfaring Stranger. Yeah, that's 5. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
5. Yeah.
Anybody else got any Ed Sheeran thoughts? Or
Oh, Lego House. Oh, no, I take it back. Take out Photograph, put in Lego House. Photograph's number 6. There you go.
Didn't know you were so passionate about Ed Sheeran, Frank.
Crushing.
So, yeah, that's okay.
Ed Sheeran was a guest artist on one of Eminem's songs. It's called "Those Kind of Nights." Check it out if you haven't.
And
good song.
And George, don't you dare besmirch the name of Ed Sheeran.
I don't like Ed Sheeran. I don't like
That was
him.
good, Nathan. That was good.
I think we all should sing a song together, like an Ed Sheeran kind of like a round or something. Just go
Hard pass.
Nope.
hard.
Hard pass.
The
Nope.
next opener we have for the next episode should be me singing an Ed Sheeran verse.
Just let Frank do a solo. We don't need anybody else. Just do him.
Hey, but while we're talking about music, just a fun little trivia fact. So in the car, when the boys and Starlight are heading to Raleigh, Starlight's looking for music, right? She doesn't want to hear herself on the radio, so she stumbles upon Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire." So naturally, Huey, being the Billy Joel fan that he is, starts singing it. So does Starlight. They have a moment. It's great. That song was on an album called, ready for it? Stormfront.
Wow.
Huh.
My mind blown.
Yeah,
It was-
I
it
had
was
that
also
album, but I
nominated for a
forgot
Grammy.
it was actually called that. But yeah, back in what, 89, 90, whenever
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah, it was
Um,
actually either the song or the record was up for a Grammy for either Song of the Year or Album of the Year or something like that. But yeah, I think that was crazy that the album was entitled Stormfront, and we have a soup named Stormfront.
You know, let's play a little. Did you know? I share a birthday with Billy Joel.
This is all coming together. This is crazy. This conspiracy theory. I mean, we got music tie-ins. We've got Billy Joel tie-ins with Stormfront, and now we got Super Freaks with songs. Oh, they haven't added that song yet, but I'm expecting it. I will be disappointed now if we don't get Super Freak in one of these episodes.
I think we have to will it. I think we need to create like a campaign like Stormfront's people and like a hashtag.
Well,
Or-
it's hashtag Storm Chasers, Justin.
There you go. Or what about the hashtag that we also learned in the show, Heroes So White?
Oh man,
that was a funny part where Homelander and Queen Maeve are on the Maria Menounos show, and she fires on the fact that 92% of the soups are Caucasian, but Homelander in a response, I love the part where he talks about Black Noir, and he's like, well, we have A Train, and he's black. Then we have Black Noir, and he doesn't really identify with any race, so we got them covered. And but then,
not true, because at that point, A Train had been kicked out of the Seven, although it wasn't public. But
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that
no,
was-
you're right. You're right. And we're gonna get to A Train's firing here in a second, but just to finish that part, and this will lead us into something else. Is
But with Black Noir, because you just brought up about he doesn't identify with any race. He's also not a fan of Almond Joy. Maybe not.
Oh yeah, with the trash there.
Yeah. Because Annika from Crime Analytics is eating an Almond Joy, and he's like hands paper, says butcher, so he obviously wants to find out butcher. So do you think we're actually ever going to see an interaction between Black Noir and Butcher? George, I'm gonna pick on you for that because
definitely.
I know you really like Black Noir.
Next episode.
Yeah, you think so? Next
Yeah.
episode?
It's happening next episode for sure.
Nice.
So I got a quick question because I know we're getting long in the tooth on this episode. But one of the things that jumped out at me and I thought was kind of interesting was speaking of that show with Maria Menounos. I can't say her name, but the reveal publicly of Maeve's relationship and what are the potential repercussions that may come from that. So that was kind of interesting. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
That was messed up. That's probably one of the most messed up things he's done, and he's done a lot of messed up things. So
That
I feel-
wasn't his information to share.
Yeah, I feel very bad for Maeve, and I don't know if she's gonna she's definitely gonna hold a grudge, or I hope she gets her revenge somehow. But yeah, that was pretty messed up.
I think I was more concerned of the idea if Homelander would actually do something to Elena or Queen Maeve.
Yeah, that was my concern. Like that
I'm
cat's out of the
genuinely-
bag, and it's like,
Yeah,
Which
definitely.
you saw her look. She was petrified with the
yeah.
reveal of that information, not because it was public knowledge now, but because Homelander knew.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But also someone who I think has a very questionable nature in itself has to do with A Train, because when he sees Shockwave at Vought and he then goes and confronts Ashley. First of all, I love her retort about Vought for tots. Apparently kids are obese and A Train's like, well, I love some fat kids, put me as the as the face for it. I died watching that scene. But whoever wants to answer, is A Train gonna go away quietly, or is he gonna do something to try to take down Vought or Homelander or
Shockwave?
Or Shockwave?
He's not going to go quietly into the night. There's no way. I don't know where they're going to go with him, but it's like we talked about with last season. I felt he was on a kind of a redemption arc. And I think this is part of the process. Now, the question is he going to fall out and end up with the good old collective? Are they going to scoop him up like they did the Deep? Is he going to end up elsewhere? Is he going to cause some kind of turmoil within Vought with the revelation of information that he's got tucked away? I don't know where they're going to take that with him, but he's not by any means out of the picture.
Anyone else?
Maybe he teams up with Starlight. Maybe he gets with, talks to her about, the thing is, I don't really like, what does he have over Vought anymore besides the Compound V, which is now out in the open? What does he hold over Vought or really anybody? I mean, the problem with him is he has a heart problem, and who knows how much longer he's going to last from all the Compound V of use, I guess.
Well, he still has something over Starlight. To Homelander, but now he has a reason not to reveal that because screw Homelander, he's the one that wants him out. So now revealing that information wouldn't really help him so much as hurt Starlight and benefit Homelander, which I think is the last thing at this point he wants to do, which is why I feel that redemptive arc is going to push him either towards for the collective may swoop in on him, or else he may end up somehow with the boys, but it's going to take some work to get him with the boys with Starlight's side, but who knows? This may right away push him right into it, going, you know what, Starlight I know is against Homelander and Vought, so screw it, I'm on board,
That'll be an interesting character development, if that does transpire in the next episode or maybe towards the end of the season. Who knows? It's crazy. So, anyone else have some last thoughts about this episode before we sign off?
I've got a couple little funny Easter egg things that I noticed. This is part of the reason why I love this show so much is there's so much like stuff in the background to check out. And I'm sure y'all noticed this, but Brittany was talking about the Vought for Tots, which I love that title. But then there was also an ad for Vought Plus, which is like their Disney Plus service, their streaming service, which I'm sure you could probably like package it with Voughtify. It's probably like $25 a month or something, but it's worth the deal. It's a good deal. And I noticed when they were in North Carolina, they're driving in North Carolina, and there's a billboard that says, "That baby you abort might be super." And that made me laugh.
I missed that.
Anti-abortion thing.
Wow.
And if you've ever driven through Waco, Texas, you see stuff similar to that, except for minus the superhero stuff. But
Thanks.
I've seen similar stuff like that. And then there was a barn in North Carolina where it had Homelander painted on the side, but his cape was the Confederate flag. So that 100%, if Homelander were a real superhero in our world, that would 100% be something you would see on T-shirts, on the back of pickup trucks with gun racks, definitely on barns, So anyway, just some funny like little Easter egg things that make me happy. So anyway, does anybody else have any parting shots or closing thoughts?
I just can't wait to see this upcoming episode, which will be episode 5 for season 2 of The Boys. There's a lot of questions like what's going to happen with Butcher now that Becca doesn't want to go with him. What's going to happen with Huey now that Starlight more or less has dumped him? Is she going to continue helping the boys or not? And like what y'all were talking about with A-Train's development, is he, what's he going to do now that he's out of the 7 and everything else, of course, about Liberty and Homelander in general. So it's going to be an interesting rest of the season.
Wait, did you say Liberty? Like Liberty, 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 Liberty.
I need you to stop it.
Sorry, that's a hell of a jingle. I'm probably gonna be very wealthy very soon, so this might be the last show.
Whatever, Justin. Whatever.
So George, Frank, Nathan, any like closing thoughts?
Nah, I think we covered it pretty well. At least as far as I was concerned.
Okay, well, for Brittany, George, Frank, and Nathan, this is Justin signing off. We'll be back next week for episode 5 of season 2 of The Boys. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. See you next week.
Bye all.
Holla.